Hey guys, this is James Cave. I'm a teacher at Rollsville Area High School, and today I am joined by Lambers Fisher. Lambers is a family therapist who deals in supporting families and individuals with trauma. He works for Christian Heart Counseling. Welcome, Lambers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Of course. So, the reason you're here today is I'd like to talk about trauma. And if you could go back and if you could start with, I hear a lot about historical trauma. Could you just tell us what historical trauma is?
Sure. To a certain degree, we can all acknowledge that the past, in various ways, influences the present, whether it be our memories that we can do cognitively or in our bodies. It influences what we do in the future. If we experience a threat in the past, it's good for our minds to remember it and our bodies to remember it so that we can reduce the likelihood of experiencing the same thing in the future. And so, historical trauma not only gets to go back to recent past, distant past, but also generational things passed down, either things being directly taught to us or even physiologically. Our body responds to things internally, and we can pass that on to our kids, to our grandkids. Things we can get. We can experience that based on things that we never directly experience, but it can still have that impact. And so, as we address things in the day to day, we need to have a broad enough picture to say, well, I don't see why I'm responding or why somebody else is responding in a certain way. Well, we can look recent past, distant past, and even go far back to say it may have different degrees of influence. Well, if as many things as we can become aware of, then we can have a better chance of responding in a healthier way now.
Okay, well, interesting. So we all have traumas. I mean, all of us have traumas at different levels and different parts of our life, right? I mean, we just
Indeed.
all do. So you're saying that my great great grandfather could experience this horrible, huge trauma, and it's going to impact my reactions today?
Indeed. And I like impact. I like influence instead of dictate. I'm
Okay.
not saying that what happened, many generations ago is going to dictate like a puppet on a string. You don't have any control over behavior, but there can be influencing factors. You can have a shock. You can have a response. You can have a fear that you can't logically explain, but that preceded you and I was passed on in some direct or indirect way. And going through the process of trying to piece that out is where, professional services come in. But in the day-to-day um, uh, interaction, it's just good to be aware that sometimes the stimulus, the trigger for a trauma response can be right in front of your face, or it could go far back. Best thing we can do is just keep our eyes open, look for as many things as possible, learn about our family histories and things like that to find as many influencing factors so that we can help reduce the negative ones, increase the positive ones, and live our healthiest life now.
Okay, interesting, very interesting. So then let's bring it up to the topic. We're talking about I've been talking about on these episodes, the Derek Chauvin murder trial,
Indeed.
the murder of George Floyd last summer. And a lot of my friends, number of people I know said that seeing police officer or former Minneapolis police officer kneeling on the neck of George Floyd caused something that they felt was even bigger inside of them than just like when I saw it. It impacted it impacted me seeing this.
Yeah.
But how would somebody who what would trigger or how I'm sorry, could you explain how that triggers this historical trauma, say for an African American male who's watching this on the news or on YouTube?
Sure. Well, I can view that in two different ways. One, if you stay with the historical trauma lens, you can say there's different conversations where people say, hey, well, you weren't a slave yourself, so that shouldn't have any impact on you whatsoever. It's like, yes, that may be true in the timeline sense, but one, we have to realize that wasn't that many generations ago
No,
when that was
no.
there in this country. And a lot of times we view that's just in the movies many years ago that almost seems like a different world, but it was actually still just a few generations ago when that impacted. And the lessons that were taught, not just to your kids and then to your grandkids, but physiologically, when you learn to be afraid, when you learn to be on guard, when you learn to have that sense that danger is around, gets passed down physiologically, is in our DNA and things like that. And so when there's continual threats, we're wired to reduce the likelihood to avoid similar threats. And some of those things can go dormant. And then when we see things in front of our faces, it's almost like, okay, every day that I go to school, that I go to work, that I go to the grocery store, I don't have to worry about those. And then you see something like that, and there's a shock to the system because that should not happen. I thought we had gotten rid of that threat. I thought we didn't have to worry about that, at least physiologically. And then you see it, it's almost like it's still here. But even if you don't have to go that far back to generations ago, people have this conversation today where we say, well, that's remote. We hear about things on the news or online, and we say, well, that's unique circumstances. You see, I can relegate that to one problem here, one problem there, one person's behavior. But then when you see another one, we see Philando Castile, we see, Breonna Taylor, we see here and here and here and here. It's like, wait a minute, this is real, people, and we got a chance to see it. You hear about it, it does one thing, but when you see it, even people who haven't experienced things like that they can tie back to any scenario, when they saw it, it became real. And then when it becomes a trauma, a trigger. But when you have the realization that, wait, can that happen again? What is unique about this that can reassure me that can't happen to me, that won't happen to me or anybody I know, anybody I care about? It's too close. People on the other side of the world are saying that's too close, that's too real. Is it about the police officers, about the neighborhood, is about the person? And the unknown says that could happen. And then when other similar things happen in different parts of the city, in different parts of the state, in different parts of the world, it's like, wait a minute, what is going on here? That fear response, that need to protect oneself and the people we care about, thus gets triggered again because, wait a minute, I don't know what I need to know in order to protect myself. So we need to do something about this trauma response.
Yeah.
So it's very consistent.
So in your opinion, or well, yeah, your opinion, why did the the murder of George Floyd strike such a nerve? I mean, we're not talking Minneapolis. We're
Oh,
not
yeah.
talking Minnesota. We're not talking United States. I mean, you name a big city around the world, and there was protests, and there was images of George Floyd, and why this one? I mean, as you said earlier, I mean, yes, there was outrage about Philando Castile and Breonna Taylor, and in Baltimore, and you keep going back, right?
Yeah.
And it just one after another. But what was it about this one, do you think, that
Yeah.
struck a chord in Paris or in
Yeah.
LA or in wherever?
Exactly, and I'd be hard pressed to read minds
Yep.
and speak definitively. But I have seen a lot of trends with a lot of people seeking counseling after
Mhm.
after that over the past year, and a lot of things being talked about around the world. And some common trends come up. One, just the fact that it was seen. If it
Yeah.
wasn't on video, the odds of this happening last year and the reaction happening rather are slim, are lessened.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it was seen, and then the circumstances around it was like, well, he must have had a weapon. Oh wait, no, like I said, he must have fought back. This must have been the results of a knockdown, drag out brawl. Wait, no, we can't say that. No, it must have been a gang win. And an officer had to defend his life because his life was in danger. Wait, no, wait, what? And then it was a temporary situation that had to be done because if it not for that, then he had no other choice. Like, wait a minute, he did that. He was clearly immobilized for how long? And
Yeah.
everybody's saying something. And the loss of life
Yeah.
visualized shocked the system of so many different people. It's like, wait a minute, that is not supposed to be how this story plays out. In nobody's mind is that supposed to be how the story plays out. And then that affects other people. People who had the luxury of saying that's not my daily life, or they clearly deserve that, are looking at it saying, I can't wrap my head around how this person deserved what I just saw. I don't know. I don't care what came before the video started. What I'm seeing right now doesn't make sense. Something needs to change, not just here, but so that it doesn't happen in the future. I heard people actually say, "Oh, I don't understand. I didn't realize that this person, this George Floyd person, was he the next Martin Luther King? Did we just lose a hero to the whole African American community?" It's like, no, most people don't even know who he was before all this happened. But it was a symbol. The experience was a last straw of sorts. It says this can't happen, and to that degree, it people resonated around the country for people who similarly felt this can't happen near or far because there are police officers that could do that. There's other law enforcement, there's other people in authorities, not just police officers as a whole. There are a lot of great police officers trying to do great things, trying to join that movement, not a specific trademark movement, but the movement to get a certain message across that says life matters and we need to do a better job of protecting it.
So I can hardly. So the trauma came out. A lot of trauma came out from a lot of people last summer.
Indeed.
Now we are a week and a half into the trial, which we're not even in the trial piece, but the start of jury selection. And
Yes.
um, are we going to see? Do you think people are going to be triggered? And I don't mean triggered in a negative, bad way, but
No, I hear you.
like a make fun way. But
Yes.
I mean, how does trauma come back up now? We a lot of people, felt the trauma last summer, and now the trial is it's going to be all over the paper again. Can you kind
Yes.
of address that?
Yes, as it stands right now, we had a year approximately to wrestle with the feeling. Sometimes it was for some, it was just another of many experiences that they've gone through from all parts of their life, and for many it was new. But they had to wrestle with it in a new way, in a new visual way, with a shared experience that was new all the way around. But then time has passed and people have tried to fit it into their life in some way, for some more overt than others. But when the trial comes up, then it has a chance to rise up again, because this is an opportunity for something to be different, regardless of what your hope is for the outcome. If it is what you hope it'll be, then you'll respond one way. And if it's not what you hope it'll be, you respond differently. And so when we talk about the trauma response, people who are saying this just can't happen, there isn't always a actual genuine desire internally for a specific outcome for the officer who was kneeling on his neck. They're not actually, for many people, they're not worried about literally where he's going to spend his days and how long he's going to spend those days.
Yep.
It's about whether the outcome will represent a consequence that will deter the same thing from happening again. That's where it's a trigger response. It's like, can I feel safer after this the court result? Is the court result going to result in me being able to put down my trauma guard, put down my sensitivity level to a similar threat, or is it going to be a result that says none of this mattered? It can happen again, and it may even be worse, because, well, if this doesn't cause a response, then what will? Now my guard needs to be even higher than it was before, and I'm more likely to experience more things that's traumatic, because not even this can keep me safe. Not even this can put up light bulbs. And so it's that recognition that we need to be prepared in order to respond healthily to any response. If it goes the way you hope it, whatever, whoever's listening, goes where you hope it will, what will your healthy response be? If it doesn't go, how will you live healthily anyway? What will your healthy response be? And that's the difficult challenge we have while we wait the unknown amount of time during this trial, which is difficult for those type of tense emotions, and for unknown amount of time with an unknown response. But at the end, we still need to be healthy in how we respond to it.
I just can't stop imagining. So, we have the historical trauma, and then that is aggravated, or you're elevated, your fight or flight, I don't know, is elevated.
Yes,
And then it's another case, and it's another case. And so each
exactly.
time, and like you said, it's not going the way a lot of people would, the Philando Castillo,
Yes.
or whatever it is. You think like, oh yeah, this is the one. And it's not. So I got to think then, so each event raises your
That level.
yeah, or your threat level. So it's going to be raised now with the trial anyway.
So
And so you're saying the result of the trial is either going to maybe balance it out just a little bit, or shoot it straight up even more.
I will say it depends on the person. That's why I used
Yeah.
the language that I did. It depends on what your hope. There's some people who are hoping for one outcome, and other people are hoping for the other. There's still hope either way. There's
Yeah.
still hope that something will come out of it that makes them feel more comfortable, whatever that looks like. And so the trial itself just raises up the tension that people have been trying to stick in some pocket of their emotional space to cope, so that they don't have to hold on to that. You can only hold on to tense emotions for so long. This it doesn't make it less important. It just means you have to put it in a certain place to live every day. And when the trial comes up, it says, "Oh, you put me in the corner? No, I'm right there in front of your face now. Hold on to me." And no, most people don't necessarily want to look at the trial on the news every day and follow every single word. They want it to be over. They want it to be quick, so they don't have to hold on to that emotion. But we don't have the luxury of that. That's not how the legal system works,
No.
for better or for worse. And the trial itself raises the tension back up, the ambiguousness of it. And then the result will challenge people to say, okay, now that you have that result, Are you prepared to respond in the healthiest way possible? Now, I don't mean the quietest way possible. You can have loud, inconvenient ways that are still healthy. And then you can have ways that are unhealthy response, unhealthy that you might regret the next day, or however it's expressed. But we need to be prepared to ride out this without crashing emotionally,
Yeah.
and then respond in a way that can help us increase the likelihood of our own safety, let alone whoever else you care about in your vicinity that you can.
So, off the subject just a little bit, you and I were talking before we started this interview, and let's just put it out there. There is a
Go for it.
racial, obviously a racial component
Indeed.
to this whole thing. And as a white ally, or a white accomplice, you want to support, you want to be there. Um, what can you say for both, right? What can you say for somebody who maybe a black male who's really suffering trauma, whether they know it or not, or whether
Right.
they know the root of it or not, and
Exactly.
then the white friend who maybe doesn't quite get it.
Sure. Okay. Okay. And narrow down to those two. Okay. So the African American male
And we did talk, to be fair, we did talk about a lot of different kinds of people.
yeah,
We talked about Asian Americans, we talked about
indeed.
people who are Jewish, but
Yeah.
let's narrow it down to this one just for this
Yeah,
interview.
just for analogy, because we
Yeah.
also talk about the intersectionality piece. We're more than just one thing. So
That
that
word, that's a good word. Yeah.
that's a good baseline to
Yeah.
consider. But just for the analogy of the contrast, which I totally
Yeah.
love as well. It's the idea that I'll broaden it a little bit more. Those who are experiencing it a little bit more, whoever might feel themselves in that category, and those who aren't experiencing it in the same way. And so you have the African American male or whoever else is in that category. Then the challenge is to try to acknowledge and identify and own as many feelings as they're feeling, and to accept it. If you're feeling sad, feel sad. Don't let anybody else tell you, well, you shouldn't be feeling that way. You feeling angry, then feel that anger. Try to assess why you're feeling angry, because they all could be threat assessments, and trying to figure out how you can protect yourself, people you care about. A lot of people had traumatic experiences seeing, literally, if we were watching a movie, if there was a movie about this, they would be seeing George Floyd's face, and then their own face would flash across his, because the graphics would do it, because they see, what if that was me? What if that was my neck? What if that was my son, my cousin? And that reality says the trial will not in of itself change your reality in that moment.
Yeah.
You have a chance to live your healthiest life. All you can do is focus on you, as far as your safety, and then make whatever steps you reasonably can to improve your life, your family, your community, and broad. Like, you start there, and then you do, if you want to be more active and overt, then great. If you want to just do more one-on-one, whatever interaction you can, great. And if you can only have the bandwidth mentally, emotionally, to just protect yourself, then so be it. But whatever it is, accept your feelings, and try to express them in the healthiest way possible, without assuming the intentions or lack of care from anybody else, which is where we cross over. Can't
Yeah.
assume that anybody who just because they don't look like you, they're your enemy. It's like, no, let's make sure we're assessing who is a literal threat to us and who is not. And sometimes we view ignorance as a threat, and sometimes it can be, because in your ignorance, if you do something that causes me pain, then I have to fear the impact of your ignorance.
Okay.
And I view ignorance as in a completely neutral way, lack of knowledge. We're all ignorant about something.
Right.
And so I don't view that as a judgment. And so we can't judge ourselves, which is where we come to the other side of saying, hey, it's great that somebody who's not experiencing it in the same way can see it. That was one of the great things about last year. People who were on the outside saw and felt something, not just
Yeah.
cognitively saw it, but they felt something they didn't feel before, because they didn't have to feel it. They didn't have to experience it. But despite the fact that it wasn't their historical or recent or lived experience, they felt compassion, they felt empathy, they felt anger. And my challenge is to embrace that. Hold on to it, not any longer than necessary, but hold on to it enough that you can let it influence you to act in some way. You may not be on a picket line, you may not be in a protest or activist per se, but you can change a conversation. You can hear somebody near you, a family member, a coworker, who says, "Can you believe those people?" And you can say, "More than I used to, actually."
Mhm.
You can change a conversation to help make healthier understanding, to help people listen and hear better, to see different perspectives, which can help the people who are experiencing it feel like there's at least a desire to understand, like there's a desire to join closer. And the challenge is also not to go too far, not to go too far, and I can now I understand completely. It's like, now you understand better. Now you understand closer, but you can't completely
Yeah.
understand unless you have that experience. But you don't have to worry about completely and absolutes. You can just say, hey, I can only imagine what you must be going through. If it's anger for me, if it's sad for me, if it's frustrating for me, it's got to be even more for you. Give some credibility to it. And you show it's like, okay, I don't have the space to teach you everything you need to know, but I appreciate you trying and you're respecting my feelings. It's like that promotes at least a safe space for both people to feel and to help each other when they can. But if they can't, there's no judgment. We're all at least working together, and those who can, when they can start to do the work to try to bring about change, which is hopefully what, in whatever way, whatever outcome it looks like. I'm not the legal creative person, but something that says this can't happen again, whatever the outcome may be.
Awesome. Lambers, that's about it for our time. We so appreciate that you were able to help us with this. I would like to, you have to get going. I would like it. I would like it if we could maybe come back in a month or and maybe address once we know more of a result or some of the things coming up. Maybe you join us again.
That would be great. Look forward to it.
All right, Lambers. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right. Bye bye.